What if America's greatest threat isn't an enemy nation? What if it doesn't arrive with missiles, or soldiers, or a declaration of war? What if it's already here quietly building while everyone argues about everything else? Because history doesn't end nations with explosions. It ends them with unpreparedness. And the real question is no longer if something is coming yet, whether America is ready for it. America looks strong. It has the largest military on Earth, advanced technology, and global influence. From the outside, it seems untouchable, a fortress of power and innovation. But history teaches a brutal lesson. No empire collapses at its peak. It collapses when it believes it can't fall. Strength on paper doesn't always mean resilience in reality. Look at the Roman Empire, the British Empire, or the Soviet Union. They all seemed invincible, right up until the moment they weren't. Their might was undeniable, their reach vast, but their foundations were quietly cracking under the surface. They mistook the appearance of strength for genuine stability. Resilience, the ability to bend without breaking and to adapt to unexpected shocks, is what truly decides survival. And America's resilience is being tested in ways it hasn't been for generations. The real strength of a nation isn't just in its military might, but in the health of its society, its economy, and its people's trust in its future. That's the core issue we need to explore. The threats of the past were visible. You could see them coming. Armies marching across borders, fleets of ships on the horizon. Clear enemies with clear intentions. Today's threats are invisible. They don't announce their arrival. They move silently through the systems that run our modern world. Our supply chains, our financial systems, our digital networks, and, most importantly, through our public trust. Think about it. A single vulnerability in a software system can paralyze entire industries. A disruption in a distant port can leave grocery store shelves empty thousands of miles away. A coordinated campaign of misinformation can erode the very fabric of social cohesion, turning neighbors against each other. Wars are no longer fought only where cameras can easily follow. They're fought quietly, in places most people never think to look. In the code of our financial markets, in the logistics of global shipping, and in the information we consume every day. America was built for a different kind of world, a world of physical battles and clear front lines. But the battlefield has changed, and the country's old defenses may not be enough to protect it from these new, invisible dangers. Every system has a breaking point. For America, those pressure points are closer than most people realize. Take the economy, which is deeply dependent on global stability. Any major disruption overseas, whether it's a conflict, a pandemic, or a financial crisis, sends shockwaves straight to our shores. Then there are the supply chains, stretched thin across the entire planet. We saw during the pandemic how fragile these are. A single point of failure can halt the flow of essential goods, from medical supplies to computer chips. Our infrastructure, the roads, bridges, and power grids that keep the country running was largely built decades ago and is now aging and vulnerable. And perhaps the most critical pressure point of all is a population that is deeply and bitterly divided. None of these issues are fatal on their own. A struggling economy, a supply chain bottleneck, a power outage. Political arguments, we've dealt with these things before. But what happens when they all come together at the same time? The most effective attacks don't destroy systems. They overload them. They push on all the pressure points at once, creating a cascading failure that is far more devastating than any single event. If a real crisis comes, it won't start in Washington. It will start in everyday life. In the grocery stores, when prices climb so high that families can't afford to eat. At the gas stations, when fuel becomes scarce or unaffordable. It'll show up in rent payments that people can no longer make, and in the loss of job security that leaves millions uncertain about their future. The modern battlefield isn't overseas. It's domestic. It's the struggle to maintain a decent standard of living when people can't afford to live, when they lose trust in the institutions meant to protect them, when they can no longer see a path to a better future for themselves or their children. When nations truly weaken. It's not a dramatic invasion from a foreign power that brings a country to its knees. It's the slow, steady erosion of its internal foundation. When the social contract breaks and people feel that the system is no longer working for them, the country becomes vulnerable from within. That is the battlefield of the 21st century, and it's fought in the hearts and minds of ordinary people. So why is preparing for this so hard? Preparing for visible threats is relatively easy. You see an army massing on your border, you build up your defenses. You see a rival navy, you build more ships. It's straightforward. But preparing for slow, complex, and often invisible crises, that's where nations fail. Why? Because prevention doesn't feel urgent. Fortifying the power grid or diversifying supply chains doesn't make for exciting headlines. It doesn't win elections. Politicians are rewarded for responding to immediate crises, not for preventing future ones. So, long-term problems are delayed. Expert warnings are ignored, and real, structural resilience is replaced with a hollow sense of optimism. We tell ourselves, it'll be fine, or we'll figure it out when the time comes. But that optimism is a luxury we can't afford. It masks a lack of preparedness. This isn't about being pessimistic. It's about being realistic. We continue to kick the can down the road, assuming that our current stability will last forever. But optimism eventually runs out, and when it does, we're left facing the consequences of our inaction. History always has a moment. A turning point where, in retrospect, people say everything felt normal. Until it didn't. One day, life is predictable. The next, the world has fundamentally changed. America hasn't reached that moment yet. For most people, life continues, as it always has. But these moments don't announce themselves with a trumpet blast. They arrive quietly. They begin as a small news story from a distant country, a minor disruption in the financial markets, or a local protest that seems insignificant at first. By the time the majority of people recognize that this is it, the moment everything changes, the window to act is already closing. The options narrow, the costs of action skyrocket, and the path forward becomes incredibly difficult. We are living in a time of accumulating risks, where the quiet buildup of pressure is happening right now, just beneath the surface of daily life. The question is, will we recognize the nature of this moment before it's too late? This isn't about spreading fear, it's about promoting awareness, because the single most dangerous belief a nation can hold is that it's immune to change, that it's the exception to the rules of history. Every great power before us has faced its own moment of truth, and America is no different. The real question isn't whether something is coming. Change is always coming. The world is always evolving. The critical question is whether America will recognize the warning signs that are already flashing the strained supply chains. The aging infrastructure, the deep social divisions, the economic fragilities. Will we see them for what they are? A call to prepare, to adapt, and to build a more resilient nation. Or will we ignore them, choosing comfort and optimism over the hard work of preparation? The choice is between readiness and regret. If you think this conversation matters, subscribe, because the future doesn't wait.